As You Are, the podcast. My name is Amanda, and I am joined by my two friends, Tyler and Stephanie. We are a trio of coaches coming together to explore life's biggest topics. Each episode, we hold true to our name, Come As You Are, by showing up and going live. Whatever we bring to the table that week is what we talk about. No scripts, no planning, just real and raw conversations. And audience participation is always encouraged. Our mission is to create a space where vulnerability and authenticity take center stage. And we believe in the power of deep conversations and soulful connections. So, welcome to the show. We're happy that you're here, and we invite you now to just sit back, relax, and enjoy today's conversation.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome.
Welcome,
I was like,
everybody.
I'm not gonna lie. So as our intro was going, I went to Facebook and I was like, I'm gonna share, like, because it immediately streams live on Facebook, and I was like, I'm gonna try to share this on my account. So like our intro was playing, and I was like on my phone trying to like come join us now, you know. So that was fun. I was like, the first time I've done that, because we're getting better at like going live and knowing how to post things. So that's a celebration for us this morning, I think.
Definitely. And I love that idea. So while you guys are like starting, I'm going to like do the same thing. I love that.
Yes. Well,
I always look at it on my phone. Like I always look when we play the intro and our faces don't show. I always love that on YouTube. It's already popping up. It's like, Come As You Are is live with the red dot, and always looking at my phone and thinking, now here we are. And this is like our life. Yeah.
It still tickles me every time the intro starts to play, and I'm like, oh, this is happening. We're going live. And I just love, I have to say, I really look forward to our sessions. And you know, we didn't go live last week because I was sick, and I also forgot to put something up. And then the previous week we did a pre-recorded, like something that we had recorded earlier that streamed live during our normal time. So it's really good to be here live again with you, like in real life. And I know it's going to be like a totally weird session today, because like we were already talking about how this Friday is off. Like Stephanie's not feeling great today. Amanda had sessions canceled. I had to drive my sister to her boyfriend's house. So like the Friday flow for me is like totally just off. And so this will be a fun episode.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. And you know what it is? I don't want to say that I rely on my calendar, but I rely on my calendar. Like my calendar is what kind of keeps things in order for me. Like it keeps me organized because I'm working on so many different things. And so if I don't have it in my calendar, then I feel sort of like all over the place. And so when things change in my calendar, not that I'm not flexible and able to, like, I'm very adaptable. I know that about myself, but it just sort of like changes the whole, I'm like, oh, okay, so what I thought I would be doing this morning, I'm not doing this morning. And then it just gave me so much more time. I was like, well, with this time, I'm going to gift it to myself. And so I was like doing some reflecting and some journaling, and that just like, I was, oh my gosh, the amount of thoughts. So I'm like, if I'm a little like scattered and all over the place today, I'm like, I've been deep in thought all morning.
What were some of your big, deep thoughts that came up today, Amanda?
Oh my gosh. So I kind of, something that Stephanie and I were actually talking about the other day, and it was like this idea of like, who are you? Like, who are you really? Like taking away the labels, like not, you know, because I can see, well, I'm the teen coach, I'm the mom. Like without the labels though, who are we? And I was really like trying to answer this question. I don't know if necessarily there, and I was looking for like, what's the short answer? And I'm not sure if there really is. But yeah, that was definitely a big one. I feel like a lot of like looking at how, so this idea that I saw this post that popped up, and it was like the idea that depressed people don't pretend to be depressed. Happy people do. And I thought,
Hmm.
that's interesting. So like thoughts all over the place, but like really interesting. Yeah, so
That's
that's where I'm at.
that's like one of those like deep question like thoughts that you get. Like for me, it like usually happens at like 11:30 when I'm trying to fall asleep, and I'm like, I wonder why depressed people always pretend to be happy, and happy people always pretend to be not that happy, or like more on the depression side. That's an interesting thought. And I think do you think it like connects back to the big question of like, who are you? And like, we're actually afraid to like truly own who we actually are. And so we hide behind like all of these masks of like either like, depression, or if you're depressed, you're like, oh, I'm just going to pretend to be happy because I don't want anybody to see that. Do you think some of that kind of correlates, like we try to put on these masks or these filters so that we never actually get to see like our true selves? And can we actually ever see our true selves?
We've done
Yeah.
it again already, you guys. It's,
Yeah.
it's only been
6 minutes
six
in,
minutes.
we're on a roll.
That got deep fast. It's only 6 minutes, guys. What happened? So yeah, I remember like Amanda, we had this conversation a couple of days ago. And I've actually been sitting with this question, who am I? Without anything I call myself, a coach, a dog mom, I don't know, someone who loves nature, whatever, like taking all of this away and then figuring out, okay, what's there? What's the essence basically? And I do have a short answer for this that I came up with a couple of days ago. It was really cool. It was kind of like a visualization that I did for myself. And and so basically I pictured this this cloud of fog, and it's like full of golden glitter. So you have this like cloud, this golden glittery cloud that just exists and is always expanding. And it has this core, it's an invisible core of life, of like energy. Even like there's no word to explain this honestly, but this core is like where everything emanates from. And then it's not even mine, it's like everyone's, but also it's mine. And then everyone else has this kind of cloud also, and we are all just forever expanding. I don't know, that's just what came to me as a visualization. I really like to think of myself as this golden glittery um uh just like small portion of fog. I don't know, that just came to me. I love this. And yeah, as I said before, I've been sitting with this just in terms of how that makes me feel and how I define myself for weeks now. So this is not something necessarily that you just journal on a few times and then you like done with it, right? I think that's such an essential, existential, deep question. And I honestly love this process at the moment that I'm in, where I am stripping all the things away. I'm like taking off all the labels, and I try to see myself, who am I as someone who's not a coach, right? That's not to say that I don't want to be a coach anymore or anything, just trying to figure out myself, like giving myself a different perspective on my own life. And honestly, I have no idea even where that comes from. But interesting, this is something that I have experienced so far, is allowing myself to taking it all off, whether it's armors or it's just really part of myself. I think what you mentioned, Tyler, was so interesting, and it got me thinking that some of the labels we have, we are genuinely super excited about, right? When I say I'm someone, when I see a rainbow, I take a million pictures. I always stop. I always look for the rainbows. Like, that's something I really love. Like, there's no baggage that comes with that, right? I'm just generally someone who loves rainbows. And then there are other labels where, or other identities we give ourselves, they may come with a little bit of baggage, right? So, for example, I have a dog, and that is 95% of the time, like a really cool experience. But then there's also the 5% where I just like, my dogs drive me crazy. And so there's a little bit of baggage with that label also. There's things that make me uncomfortable in my relationship with my dog and all of that stuff. So when I strip off those labels, I can allow myself to not have that baggage on me at the moment. And that's not to say that I don't want to continue being a dog owner, right? That's not it. It's just I'm putting it down and seeing what happens, like what's there at the essence. And I haven't figured out an answer yet, honestly, except for this visualization. But I really like this. Like this makes me these days really excited about life in a different way. I think this is very spiritual also. Yeah. So I'm curious for you two, like, do you have anything that you picture when you think of, okay, who am I without anything that I've experienced in my life so far?
Gosh, we really went there, y'all. I'm like sitting here thinking about it. I was like, wow, I don't know. I'm curious, like anybody who's watching and listening to us right now, what are your thoughts on this? Who are you when you strip away all of the labels, when you let go of the titles, when you just sit and be present with yourself? Like, who are you? Like, that's such a big question. And I think, Stephanie, I love your visual of like this smoky energy, like gold fairy, I'm going to call it fairy dust, magic dust, I don't know, something. Like I just keep thinking, actually what came to mind as you were describing the gold dust energy type of thing, smokiness, I was thinking stardust. And I was thinking this idea of how everyone and everything kind of all stems from like stardust and energy and like the universe, and like that can be, oh, we lost Stephanie.
Oh no.
She will hopefully she pops
I'm sure
back
she'll
in.
come back.
I'm just going to continue talking until she comes back in, but I keep getting that idea of like we're all made of stardust, and we're all made of energy and matter. And I think that's what connects us, is that energy, it's that essence. And I think when they talk about that spiritual realm, I think they're talking about that. They're talking about like the energy and like the magic that is like the universe, and the synchronicities and the connections and things like that. So that's what was coming up for me as Stephanie was talking. But I'm curious, what comes up for you, Amanda?
Well, first I should say, like, we do this every time. Anyone who's new here, welcome to the show. Like this is us. This is what we do. We just go there. And I think for me, really, it's hard to really answer that question, I think, because I almost, as I was like journaling around this, it's kind of like, yes, there is this like, kind of like that. I think that's what we're talking about, right? Like that energetic field.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that, yeah, I loved Stephanie's visual. And so I'm trying to think, like, what does that look like for me? And I haven't really actually thought of it in that, like, more of like a visual, which is so interesting because I'm typically a pretty visual person.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, and I guess first thing that comes to mind is I imagine, oh gosh, the Incredibles, Violet.
Yeah.
It has that like, little bubble thing, so that's kind of what I imagine. I imagine this like just like bubble of light, like a sphere of light surrounding us. And I think that this is like love and goodness. But there is like, there's a lot of different colors, and I mean, it's beautiful. It's really hard actually to put into words as I'm like seeing this. Um, but yeah, it's a really interesting thought. I never, in all of my journaling, I never really thought to like visualize something. Like I was trying to answer the question. And so I feel like that's really interesting to actually get this visual.
I think it's very, I think it's a hard thing to conceptualize, and I think that is why, I think when we answer that question, or we get asked that question, like who are you? I think it's really hard for, like you were saying, Amanda, to visualize it, to visualize the, whatever essence that is. And I think it's very interesting that, we are so conditioned to go to like trying to put words to it,
Mm.
and Stephanie, when she was like meditating on it, she was talking about how she like the imagery that came up, and I think every time we journal on something, it's like, oh my God, we have to use words to describe, who we are, and maybe we're not supposed to use words to describe that question, who are you? Maybe we are, and Stephanie's back. Maybe welcome back, Stephanie,
Welcome
Thank
back.
you.
back from the beyond. But to catch you up, we were just talking about how Amanda was talking about how she found it so interesting that when you were reflecting on that question, who are you? You got this imagery of like the smoky, glittery gold type of essence. And Amanda was sharing she never gets an image when she's asking that question. And I was saying, I think it's so interesting when we get asked that question, who are you? We immediately try to go put words to it. We like go to the journal and we try to like spell it out. And then I pose the question, well, maybe we're not supposed to use words to describe or to answer that question, who are you? Because I don't think words are enough to really get to the essence of that question. And that's why I think it's really hard when we're in that space and we're trying to think about this. No matter how many times we write a sentence or we journal down some words, I don't think it ever really hits to the true essence of that question, who are you? Because it goes beyond the self. And when we're writing, we can only think of labels. We can only think of, oh, well, maybe I'm energy, but like that doesn't feel right. Or, maybe, like I was saying, I was explaining, I was like, oh, it's like stardust, it's like that we're all made of stardust kind of thing. But even that doesn't feel like enough. And I think, we all, and I'm going to throw out this question too. So I'm going to pose the two questions. One, do you think do you think we can actually conceptualize and like verbalize and write down exactly who we are? And two, wait, what was two? I just lost it. It was right there. It was right there, y'all. It was good too. It's gone. It's gone.
Maybe we can start answering one, and then two will come
It'll
to
come
you
back.
and
It'll pop back. But
put it in
start
the
with
chat.
one.
Don't forget it.
Can you actually conceptualize? Can you visualize? Can you verbalize that question? Who are you? Is it even possible? Oh, and then this was it. Why are we so obsessed with wanting to know the answer?
Juicy questions. I love it.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not sure that there really are. I don't know if there are words. So I actually posted this question on my Facebook this week before Stephanie and I even had the conversation. And then it was like, suddenly, I don't know how our conversation landed there, but it did. And then it came back up today for me, and there were some really great answers there. And so I almost feel like in some of them I was like, oh yeah, okay, I get that. But yeah, I do think that maybe this is bigger than words. Like maybe we can get close, but I also think, as going to your second question, yeah, does it even really matter? Was almost my question to that, right? Like it's like we get hyper focused on, and I know, like, from my experience, and I think this is, just how our brain is wired. Like, you ask a question, where your brain just starts looking for an answer, right? And so, right? Like, is this just like a human, like, brain thing where we're like, oh, well, who are you? And suddenly we're like, well, I'm searching for the answer. Like, loading, like, we're just trying to, like, get there, right? Yeah, this is really, really thought provoking. I'm like, Stephanie, you take it from here. I need a minute to, like, load.
Amanda's brain is loading. We're breaking the brains today.
I think I have a good direction. That's like the perfect bridge for this, what you said, Tyler, because I think a lot of this question for me right now is exploring less definitions and more how I feel about things. So all these labels that I'm just putting down for now, I'm just thinking about, okay, how does it make me feel to first of all put that label down? Does it give me relief? Does it give me sadness? Like what's coming up for me? And then also coming back to this everlasting question of how do I want to feel, right? So if I feel XYZ, for example, I'm going to go back to this example of being a dog owner. If I feel whatever about my dog, but I want to feel differently, why is that? Why is there a gap? Because, I chose to have a dog and I have expectations of how that's going to look, right? But I don't feel the way I want to feel. Why is that, right? So I think in that sense, this whole question of who am I is helping me better to understand, what are my day-to-day emotions that I have? And from what label are they coming from? And is the way that I put on these labels onto myself kind of like a jacket, like I'm putting on the jacket of being a coach, I'm putting on the jacket of being a homeowner. How is that making me feel, and why is there maybe a gap to how I want to feel about it? I think so. It's more like, getting out of the head. And this, I loved you guys like, oh no, like, does it even matter? And I'm like, no, it doesn't matter. Like, let's drop into the body and let's figure out how we feel. I think maybe that's at least for me right now, where I am with this whole question, who am I, is where I'm at. I'm figuring out the emotions attached to it. I'm not always giving them a label, but I'm just generally figuring out, okay, is that giving me joy? Because I believe that joy is our default mode as a human being, and is not giving me joy. First of all, what's the point, right? Why are you doing something that's not giving you joy now or in the long run? And if it's not, then is there anything I can do, or anything that I have to shift in my mindset maybe to get to a place where it gives me joy? I have no idea if I even answered any of your questions now, Tyler. But I hope it was helpful.
I definitely think you cracked into some of this. I think like this idea of like dropping down from our brains and trying to get a concrete answer, having like, what are the words? What is the definition? What is this? Because I think the essence of our beingness is not something that we can easily describe. I don't think it's something that we can, I don't think we can easily just like, okay, here's the definition. Who are we? Oh, well, it's this. I think there's so many layers to it, and there's so much behind that big question that it's better to kind of, I think, go inwards and really start to connect deeper with like the emotional side of things. So I love what you're saying here, Stephanie, about how, leading life based off of how are you feeling about these things, and how are you navigating situations based off of how it makes you feel, versus, being like trying to make it so analytical, making it so like black or white, because I think the brain is very black or white. It understands like, it understands, my shirt is pink, or, like it understands very, very basic analytical things. And then deeper within, and I mean, even going into our unconscious, it's that part of us that doesn't even think, it just kind of operates and exists. I think that is where, this idea of who are you, that's where that stems from. It's from that inner beingness of that we're not even aware of. And I think it does take a lot of letting go of like the expectations, letting go of what you've always been told is right or wrong, and really, I think, coming into your own. And this is what jazzes me up. Like, I get really excited thinking about this idea of like identity and individuality, and this idea that every single person on this planet is unique, but every single person on this planet is connected, to that higher, what Stephanie was saying, like that smoky gold dust, like glittery energy, and again, I keep using the word energy, but I don't even know if that's the right word, because I don't think there is like an actual word to describe it. But it's like if we recognize that beyond, beyond our physique, beyond our body, beyond our brains, like there's this deeper thing that connects us. And again, I don't even have the words for it because it's so abstract and complex, but it's like when you recognize that connectiveness, that like that smoke, that I'm using the word smoke because that's what Stephanie said and I like it, but like, that smoke, that energy that just flows between every single one of us, we start to realize, oh, we're not as different as we think we are. We're not as, we start to recognize like, hey, there is a universal connection to all of this. And to me, that's a really beautiful thing to think about, because then we recognize we all come from the same source. And so there's no need for, the competition or the fighting or the, or the feuds, anything, there's no need for division, because how can you divide divine energy?
I need to. I need a second. I'll let that one sink in. Truly.
Yeah. I also I need a moment too.
I could just ramble on. I have
Yep.
some thoughts.
Yeah, go ahead.
Something that was coming up for me while you were talking, Tyler. You mentioned this, like what we have within this like energy, and that we can't even grab it or something like that. And then I was thinking, yeah, of course, because our own truest self, like who we are at the very core. I think you even asked this question in the very beginning, like, are we ever even going to find out who that is or who we really are? I think yes. I mean, there's not going to be this end point, right? I think it's like we're like a lotus flower. There's always going to be something new. We can always go deeper. But in general, yes, I would say that there is this there's this point in our lives where we can say, yes, we know who we are, and then it's just going deeper and deeper and deeper. But then what was coming up for me there, with everything we do, I need to also like sort my thoughts now, because everything is just very messy right now. Everything we do, is that something that we do because we are genuinely curious about who we are, or it's an extension or an expression of our true self? Or is it something that we do because we're too afraid to look at ourselves? I think generally, like, I don't want to paint it so black and white, but I would argue that essentially the way you can put it is, are your actions based off of love, or are they based off of being afraid, like fear?
Mm.
And when you when you take any action, when you do anything, make a decision or a place of love, that means you are in alignment with yourself, and you believe in yourself, and you know you're doing something for a part of yourself. But when you're making a decision or you're doing anything out of fear, it's because you either don't want to look at yourself, or there's parts that you are not comfortable with yet, or you think that you're making excuses. Basically, you think that when you would actually do the thing out of love, like, that would be really bad, right? That's why you do the thing out of fear, because it seems like the better decision in the moment. That was just also coming up for me, when we are acting from our true self, it's authentic, and it's just, yeah, pure love. But when we deny who we are, and we are not comfortable with this like big energy thing, whatever we are, then we will probably make decisions that make us deny who we actually are. Like, we're kind of like turning away from our own self.
Mm.
Yeah, that was just coming up for me there.
This is a deep one.
I expected a little bit more scatteredness today, honestly, because it's like Friday, and like we even came in, we were like we're off energetically, and things like that. But it's actually interesting, because I think our minds are right now so yearning for answers, or like yearning for understanding, that it's like actually driving this really deep conversation. And I'm curious, Amanda, have you had a minute to process? Because you've been like silently percolating in the back, like taking this all in. What's coming up for you?
Oh gosh, I think I'm still like taking it in, to be honest, and because this isn't your everyday, right? Like, for us it is, but like, but in like life, let's say, like, this isn't conversations that I get into with like everyone in my life, right? Like, and so I feel like this is something that it's actually almost bringing me to question this idea of, like, as you were sharing, Stephanie, about this, like, the authentic self, and my brain comes up with the question, well, what is then the authentic self? Like, how do we know? And what is, like, is that who we are then? Like, is that the answer? I don't know. I don't know. And yeah, go ahead, Tyler, because
No.
like
Well, and I think it's so, again, I think it's so interesting that we're having this like circle of like, okay, we pose a question, and then it goes to another question, and then it goes to this, and then we circle around, and you know, I have to go back to what Stephanie was talking about here earlier, like just a moment ago, about fear and love, you know? And when we posed the question right at the very beginning, like, who are you? My initial gut reaction was love, but then my mind was like, well, that's a silly answer. Don't say that, you know? And it was like, and so I went down like another, rabbit hole of all of this thing. But again, I think there is that, I don't know, there's just that like deepening desire to like radiate love, and like I think we totally get like the concept of love so twisted, and I think in society, why not go there? Why not? Let's go there because we're here. I think in society and I think in pop culture, we only see one side of love, which is like romantic love. It's the rom-coms, it's the meet cutes, it's all of that type of thing. And we look at love and we go, oh, that's love. But like love is this really abstract, beautiful concept that to me is like a radiance of like joy and positivity and good vibes and warm fuzzy feelings. And like it's not just like a, oh, I'm in love with that person, like romantic love. I think love is like that. I'm gonna go back to it. I think love is like that smoke and golden dusty, essence that Stephanie was visualizing. And I think that is what at the end of the day, like that's that magical spiritual energy that we're always talking about in various ways and forms. I really do. I believe that is love, and I think there's a pureness to it, and there's a beauty to it. And when we are operating in total alignment with love, that's when we get to tap into the joy and the peace and the tranquility and things like that. But I think you know in society, I think it's so easy to kind of like switch over into fear, switch over into the negatives, because that love energy is so powerful, and a lot of us don't really actually know how to harness it, and how to be open to it, and I think being open to love, like the energy of love, is one of the hardest things that we can do as humans, because of how vulnerable it is, and um, how scary it is. And so I think we keep ourselves shut, like turned off, closed down from this outpouring energy of love, because we don't want to get hurt. But like, to me, love is such an abundant energy, because it makes up the entire everything in the world, that it's like, okay, you can't you can't run out of love. It's like that constant outpouring energy that just doesn't ever evaporate. It is abundance, you know and like, that's what was coming up for me when Stephanie started talking about love and fear. And I was like, oh, wow, it's all connected.
Connected through love. And I I think that's something that, like, that theme does keep coming up for me, this idea of love, right? And how important it is. And I also think that there are also um, misrepresentations of what love is, whether that's, as you mentioned, like, in movies and these things, or even just in life, right? I think that there are, yes, there's the, like, we're talking about the warm, fuzzy, like, that's the love that we're really talking about. But I do think that oftentimes that gets a little murky. Like, it's not clear for people what exactly love truly is. Do you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that we have sometimes the wrong ideas of what love is, and this just gets passed on, like it's the generational thing, you know, like, oh yes, that's what love is, like, you know, especially I'm imagining in a situation where maybe like an abusive relationship, right? Like in I, again, like, not to give myself a label or anything, like, but as the teen coach, I'm imagining this like as the child, right? Like witnessing a relationship between parents who maybe isn't the healthy kind of love, the warm fuzzy love that we're talking about here, right? And so they get the impression that this sort of abusive type of relationship is love. Do you know what I mean? And so I feel like being able to, yes, love, but I really want to stress that this is like that warm, fuzzy joy, like, because I feel like that's obviously what you're talking about. And that was what was coming up for me too before. It's because I don't know, I do think that we do often get those kind of mixed up. Yeah. So I just want to make that distinction as we're having this conversation, because I think that it's important to, I don't know, I just think that for some reason that's what came to me. I thought that was really important to really add another layer to the conversation.
I think, honestly, my head's about to explode.
I was going to
And
say the same thing.
not because I'm a bit sick, but I think maybe partially because I'm a bit sick, but also because the things we touched on here today are so fundamental and so big. I don't know, like big. Yeah, and I think those things are not necessarily things where we need to think about haha, in a logical way, or where we have to chase answers, or where we even have to arrive at a destination. And I am like so appreciative for this conversation here today, because for myself, sitting with this question, who the heck am I without all the labels, I also imagine right now that I would at some point like close this chapter of this phase and be like, oh cool, you know, now you figured it out, now you can move on, right? And what we all shared today really helped me see that maybe this isn't something that has a definite answer, and maybe that will change in the next year or so, but I have a definite answer. Like that was my expectation. And I think I could reframe this now. And what I see now is that there are layers to it, and that when I think about this logically, I won't get any answers. Like there's no point of ever, like Tyler said before, like, is that even possible to put it in words? Like, can you write down who am I at the core and then write actually an answer that is not a picture, or that is like actual like human words? I would lean towards no. I would actually say this is something you feel, this is something you experience in a spiritual way, and this will forever stay with me, at least. Like this is something that right now is really at the forefront of what I'm pondering on, and it will probably move more to the back at some point. Right now it's not, but maybe this is one of those things when you think about where does the world end, like where does the universe end, like there's no answer because it's expanding, right? And maybe that's my answer for now. It's like there is no answer to this. And strangely, I don't know how you feel about this now, the two of you, but for me right now, this is giving me a little bit of comfort. Like it's nice to know that I'm not the only one freaking myself out over this question. It's nice to know that, if there's no answer, like that's okay. Like I can accept that. It feels very good right now.
I would have to definitely, I think my final thoughts here today, because my brain feels mushy after that deep conversation. But I just have to, I think I have to reiterate a little bit of what like Stephanie's saying, like maybe we're not supposed to have the answers. Maybe we're not supposed to understand any of this. And maybe that's the point. Like when we think about it, if we had the answer to who are we or what is the meaning of life, then it would stop the self-discovery. Then it would stop the growth. Then it would stop the exploration. And maybe we're not supposed to have the answer because we're never supposed to stop growing, stop exploring, stop questioning, because that to me is what gives life the meaning. It's like looking for the answers, searching, going out on your quest, questioning, coming to an understanding in the moment, and then 2 days later completely throwing it away because you learned something new. And that to me is the joy of this journey, is that we're not supposed to know. We're not supposed to come to a solid answer, because maybe that is the point of living, is that we're constantly searching. And that's my final thoughts.
Yeah, I feel like it's like we just are. We just are, and we don't need to actually have that. Okay, this is the box. Like, because almost like that's what we're doing, right? We're trying to find a box for something that doesn't really have a box, right? And oh gosh, I need like something after this. I'm like, I need a minute to like just decompress. But I appreciate you both, and I appreciate that the space that we get to hold here for having these conversations, because I often feel like I was saying before, these aren't conversations that I'm necessarily having on a daily basis with everyone in my life, right? Like I don't know that many of us have that. I mean, if you do, fantastic. Well, I don't. And I just think it's so amazing to be able to, even when we're, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the answer is, right? And I think as we're all saying here, this idea of we're constantly sort of evolving and being able to sit back and ask the questions and really just like ponder. Doesn't mean we have to at the end of this episode, it's like, well, we have to have, this is the answer. It's like, it's still just a question mark. So I appreciate that so much. And I just appreciate that we get to have these conversations. Though this one I have a little bit of like a brain ache from, in a good kind of a way. But like, yeah, this was, oh my gosh, so good. I feel like, I don't know where it will take us, but I'm just so grateful to have had this time to sort of, unravel some of the thoughts. So appreciate you both, and thank you everyone for watching. We appreciate you all, and if any of you do, as Tyler was saying, like if any of you do have any answers to this question, please share. We want to know. We want to know.
And definitely, if anyone who's watching this, if your head is about to explode as much as ours, then also please share that in the comments, because we're curious if this gave you the vertigo also. And spiritual vertigo today. And our podcast is called Come As You Are. And I think for today we are just the last two words. We are just you are. Like that's all we are for today. And yeah, with that, thank you everyone for watching, for being here. Share with us what you think, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
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 Thank you for listening to Come As You Are, the podcast. You can follow the show on Instagram at Kaya the Podcast and on YouTube and Facebook by searching Kaya the Podcast. If you haven't already done so, please help us keep the conversation going by subscribing, rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. And be sure to join us next time for another deep conversation.